If you've ever wondered whether HR is really on your side or just quietly reporting back to the people who sign your paycheck, you're asking exactly the right questions. This episode gets into what we found when we asked hundreds of CEOs, executives, and employees what they really think of HR. And let's just say 64% reported having a bad experience was not even the most alarming part. And more than a few HR leaders asked out loud whether we need HR at all. That one stung. But it's exactly why we're having this conversation. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome back to the Don't Talk to HR podcast. I'm Amy Hamlin-Rodemick, or just Amy HR.
And I am Neeru.
So last week we discussed why we decided to write this book. This week we want to talk about why HR is so hated and what we learned during our research.
That's right. For this book, we felt it was important to get an unbiased view of HR from multiple sources. So we conducted a series of interviews as well as requested feedback via survey, and the responses were interesting to say the least.
We sure did. So let's start with the interviews. We both talked to many CEOs, board members, HR people, executives, and investors. During your conversations, what were some of the things that you heard?
It's very interesting. We are seen as a function that's there to protect the company and not the employees. We are still driving with one-size-fits-all approach and many more. All in all, not so bad, but not so good scores. Exactly
Indeed.
What we kind of expected.
So seen as the protectors of the company and not so much employees. Was there anything that the executives that you spoke with called us out on, things that we should be doing differently from their perspective?
From an executive standpoint, they do want HR to partner. As against order takers, they really want true business partners. That was the executive call. When you talk to HR peers or people who are really employees, they do want HR to be employee advocates. So it was kind of like a different view that came forward.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. When I had my conversations with executives and board members and everything, it was clear that they saw us as our role is to protect the company. So essentially to be the corporate police, right? And sadly, employees see that as well. They do not see us as advocating for employees at all. Now, me, as a chief people officer, I have always considered my role, I am responsible for the human beings in this organization, right? Full stop. Yes, there is part of the job that requires us to look at how are we, taking care of the organization, but the balance seems off. And it's not just me that sees this, but executives see it and employees see it as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, but 64% of people shared that they had a bad experience with HR. So clearly it's a balance that everybody's trying to establish, but in that balance, they're clearly losing it from an employee end.
And we'll talk about in more detail when we get to that episode about the corporate police versus employee advocate situation, because that was a big breakthrough that we had in the writing of this book, and it needs to be addressed for sure. I heard some similar things from people. One of the things that I heard, since we're just focusing on like executives and CEOs and board members initially, is that we lack business acumen. And I think that this is actually a fair assessment. I mean, every HR business partner needs to go deep into the business, and they have a much more field of knowledge available to them because they're deep embedded within the business. But if you are just, say a compensation analyst, or you are, in any other position that doesn't have direct access to the business, you have to go and learn that on your own. But it's critical for our function, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's a question I've asked many HR business partners. Do you really think the business in HR BP is something you got to earn? Or let it drop if you're not doing that? As recent as last week, I asked my team this when none of them could answer some of the questions around business metrics. So I think we need to level up, in both sense, being an employee advocate on one side and level up on understanding business on the other side. It's not an easy thing, but it's got to be done. And that is one of the reasons or compelling reasons for us to delve deeper into this subject and write this book.
Absolutely. And on the business acumen side, I think one of the observations that I had is we don't set HR people up for success in this regard. Most people don't dream, of being in HR when they grow up. It's, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was growing up, right? Some of us, most of us fall into the profession and, find that it fits. And I absolutely love it. It's been my career and my passion. But I am like most HR people, I learned everything on the job. And what was the big shock to me the first time I was put into a head of HR role. I went from senior director to executive vice president like overnight. And I didn't have any of that wind up, like learn about a P&L, learn about gross margin, all these different financial metrics that are really critical for people to understand in HR. I just got thrown into it, and it was a big culture shock. Like, I need to learn a whole new language and quick. But once I started to learn the language and get more of that business acumen, I started to understand how my decisions impact the bottom line of the company. And I stumbled and fell multiple times trying to get programs approved because I didn't know how to sell it properly to private equity, people who are all bankers, or executives that are highly focused on the numbers. And I think we just don't do enough to prepare HR people for that world.
That's true. Even, that's a big message or a shout out for academia out there. How well are the courses, how the programs are being structured today. We still see that gap, and therefore, very important. Again, one of the key reasons why somebody should be reading about our experiences, learn from there, and, literally level up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So overall, looking at the feedback that we received, just looking at this particular population, the executives, the HR executives, board members, that sort of thing, we did come out with some common themes. And then when we looked at the survey data from employees, it validated it. So the common themes that came out of our feedback, there's 5 of them. One, and this makes me very sad, there's a lack of trust, empathy, and confidentiality within HR. And this blows my mind, because the confidentiality piece and the empathy piece, this is fundamental for HR. If you can't keep things confidential, quite frankly, you shouldn't be in the profession. But it is, I also understand, because it is a profession where you know where all the bodies are buried, you know all the gossip and all the things that are going on, and it can be tempting on a human level to gossip with your colleagues. It happens, it does, going to admit that. But it's causing us to lose trust with employees. And as we read more of these stories, you'll see why. The second one was we have too much focus on administrivia. We are big fans of our paperwork and policies and all this stuff. And does this really provide true value? I mean, these are necessary things, but in my humble opinion, I think a lot of it can be automated or handed off to another department. But we'll get into that at a future episode as well. The third theme was the lack of business acumen, which I think we agree is an issue. The fourth is we're not set up for success. And that's, you look at that in multiple veins. Like, we generally are one of the most underfunded organizations in the company, often seen as, the warm and fuzzy HR people. And I think we're getting better at selling our stories, of explaining to boards and executive teams that, investing in a mental health wellness program will have a direct impact on attrition and productivity and those kinds of things. And we'll get into that as well in a future episode. And the last theme is we have a lack of a clear value proposition. This is so true, and something that HR has been grappling with ever since the inception of the profession. Like, what are we really here to do? And it's morphed and changed a lot over the years. And we're at that crisis point again, in my humble opinion. What is the true value we offer? It's not paperwork. It's not, being the corporate police. It's something different. And we'll get into that as we move on. The one thing I heard a couple of times from different feedback providers, which was shocking and humbling for me, is several people said, do we even need HR? Like, why don't we just do away with HR? What do you think about that?
I do feel there is reason why people are saying that. And we did speak about the paradigm shifts in terms of the technology, the way it's coming in, and the value of HR will actually move away from the administrivia that you spoke about. So this is where the challenge lies. How do you still, level up, show your value, partner in the way business expects you to, be the advocate, for the employees, and not just be paper pusher, be a news reader. HR needs to be making headlines.
Yeah, they do.
Like, I think I express my view because I do feel we're not doing something right at times. And, it's just like when you stay in transactions, that's the easiest thing to do away with.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's clear that we do not have a clear value proposition if people see us as disposable at this point, right? And it's incumbent on us to really come out with, well, this is what we are here for, this is what we stand for, and this is how it impacts the business. So we also ran a survey. Between Neeru and I, we have about 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. We reached out to them and we got several hundred responses that came back in from employees mostly, but there were a few executives that popped in there as well. We looked at the analysis, and sad to say that the highest score that we got out of 5 was a 3.5. And the lowest score we got was a 2.7. So the highest score was for the question, HR keeps things confidential when necessary. And the lowest score, 2.7, is HR is unbiased. So that's pretty concerning, right? And that talks to our original point that we are seen more as the corporate police than anything else. Our overall average score on the survey was a 3.1. So I would give us a solid C, maybe even a C minus in terms of how we are perceived by employees and executives now. I think there's a really good chance for us to bump that up to a B plus, A minus, just with some minor changes. And we will get to that over the coming weeks in our podcast here. As is our tradition, we're going to read a story about HR and why do we dislike it and how have they messed up in the past. Okay, so here's our story for the week. HR hired consultants to run morale-building employee input sessions. Basically saying, we're not from the company, you can tell us all the things you don't like about working here and would like to see change, and we'll put it all into a report for management. Don't worry, everything is anonymous. We just need material for our report, and you guys get to have your say in improving things around here. Turns out, HR and the consultants recorded all the sessions and played the highlights for management. People were disciplined for criticizing the company or their immediate superiors, and any shred of faith or trust in management that the employees may have had was instantly incinerated. Managers now complain they don't know what's going on in their teams because nobody tells them anything. I wonder why. How many times have we seen this happen in business? It's so true. And even when we do set up an anonymous survey and we don't share that information anywhere, you still run the risk of a manager maybe trying to figure out who on their team said what. And so it is a common issue, that's for sure.
Yeah. Confidentiality is important.
And no wonder why they don't trust us. So to wrap up this session, those are the themes. We're going to go into detail on each one of these.
Thank you for joining us. Do like, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, do hit the bell icon. Please do share your comments, anything you'd like us to cover in the upcoming episodes, and do talk to HR.
And may the force be with you.
And also with you.